Self-sabotage itself is actually a form, it's actually a type of defense mechanism. Do you think about when Tony is in this state, when she's in this state at the wrong time or for too long, it actually does the opposite of protecting her. It actually causes her to be vulnerable and put at risk to predators. And it's also very hard for her to swim. And so self-sabotage is actually a defense mechanism that we get, but it's actually rooted in many things that we'll talk about today. I can get the screen. Okay, so that's fine. We get that working, so we pull it up here. Lou, the pickup is not working. So as we getting this together, so self-sabotage is actually rooted in what I call the comparison trap. So the comparison trap is basically when our self-worth is not where it's supposed to be, it actually causes us to self-sabotage relationships, whether that's based on having an inflated self-esteem or whether it's having a low self-esteem. So whenever our sense of self is off base, it actually causes us to sabotage in relationships. So the comparison trap, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 2 through 10 says, "For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can do the good things He planned for us long ago." And so it's very important for us to base our self-worth, our sense of self, on what God says we are. If we don't believe that we're a masterpiece created in God's image, that's a very dangerous thing. Because when you don't think that, it's going to either lead you to have a low self-esteem, or again, you want to overinflate yourself. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12 says, "Oh, don't worry. We wouldn't dare say that we are as wonderful as these other men who tell you how important they are. But they are only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement." How ignorant. And so the way that we value ourselves, it should even come from our own view of what our worth is. Our view of ourselves and our worth should always start from how God views us. Next slide. So what is self-sabotage? Self-sabotage in relationships is a complex pattern of defense mechanisms that can devastate both the person engaging in the behavior and their partner. It is a set of actions or thoughts that hinder you from achieving happiness or success in your relationship. These behaviors can be conscious or unconscious, and they often lead to habits that are difficult to cease from doing. So there's 4 things that they're rooted in today that we'll talk about. 1, they're rooted in childhood trauma. 2, they're rooted in fear. 3, they're rooted in unhealthy comparison, which is rooted in low self-esteem. And 4, they're rooted in poor emotional regulation. So here's how Tony actually looks when she doesn't have her guard up. So you see she's very different, right? So Tony's dilemma. Tony has a history of dating emotionally unavailable men. At times, she met a handsome fish named Sam, who was emotionally available, attentive, and caring, which made her uncomfortable. Tony began creating unnecessary arguments, questioning Sam's intentions, and ultimately pushing him away. Despite Sam being a good catch, Tony's self-sabotage ultimately destroyed their relationship. So Tony is a great example of when your childhood trauma causes you to have unhealthy attachment styles that actually can sever relationships. So our childhood trauma actually, the way we're raised as children, the kind of love and support that we had, especially from our parents or caregivers, it directly impacts, in many cases, our attachment styles that we have in relationships that I'll talk about. So the first is secure attachment. So secure attachment is a great advantage in love. It's comfortable with communicating with problems occur and allowing your partner to feel free. So this often consists of honest and open relationships and higher emotional intelligence. So many people that have a secure attachment style, they're highly resistant to individuals with self-awareness. The next is ancient. So the ancient preoccupied is, in this case, many people with this type of attachment style, they have a great fantasy of romance. So they kind of romanticize love. So they have these fantasy bonds with people, and their views of love is not often based on reality. So they're very big on ideals, what they ideally see themselves as having. These kind of people are often attracted to people that they feel that they need to save, which can lead to them being very demanding, obsessive, and clingy. And many people with an anxious attachment style, they often overanalyze relationships. They often have mood swings and many insecurities. So these type of people tend to have grown up with very unhealthy boundaries. The next one is the dismissive avoidant. The dismissive avoidant is people that tend to be emotionally distant. They often try to practice self-sufficiency and independence and evade intimacy. These type of people often prefer to push their partners away when they feel vulnerable, and they see independence as an illusion. So many people with this type of attachment style often have very few friends in close relationships. And the second type of avoidant attachment style is fearful avoidant. So many narcissists actually fall within this category. These type of people have a fear of being too close and too distant. So it's a relationship of many highs and lows. They understand that they need to get close to people to find love, but they have a very great fear of abandonment. So again, and these type of people, they're also prone to be in abusive relationships. So there's many different types of attachment styles, and it's important to identify which of these do I identify most as. And a lot of this, what you will see, is actually rooted in childhood. So past childhood neglect, abuse, and abandonment is often linked to self-sabotage. So Tony's parents were often absent during her childhood, being raised by a revolving door of caregivers. Her fears of abandonment and feelings of unworthiness were projected onto her adult relationships, leading to sabotaging behaviors that ultimately left her alone and isolated. On the other hand, children who have experienced consistent loving care are more likely to develop secure attachment styles and positive self-concepts. So for example, Sam, who was raised in a loving, supportive family, has a high sense of self-worth and trust in his partner's love. As a result, he is less likely to engage in behaviors that would sabotage his relationship. So again, the thing is, our past experiences don't have to define us. So today you may have an anxious attachment style, but that doesn't mean that you have to always have an anxious attachment style. But it starts with having more self-awareness of yourself. So now we're going to look at self-sabotage is also rooted in fears. So one is actually rooted in the fear of success. So brings accountability. This is somebody that says, what if everything goes right? What if this person is actually the right person for me that I can spend the rest of my life with? Because the thing is, when things go right, that brings expectation, that brings accountability. Fear of failure. So many people with the fear of failure, again, as the avoidance style, they have a fear of abandonment. And also a fear of loss of identity. So they have a fear of losing their freedom. So there's many things that people may fear in a relationship. And because they feel like they're getting more love than what they deserve, than what they think that they deserve, what they do is they often begin to conduct behaviors that actually work against their own good. So here's just a few quotes that I decided to add. So Marianne Williamson says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And then Joe Ty said, fear of success is far more dangerous than fear of failure because the subconscious mind works to prevent that which it fears. So people may fear success because of low self-esteem and feeling of not deserving it. Because it will increase what others expect of them, fear of success shows us shows up as anxiety, indecision, avoidance, procrastination, or acceptance of mediocrity. And Jack Canfield says everything you want is on the other side of fear. And of course, we all know that God doesn't give us over to a spirit of fear. So the next one is rooted in unhealthy comparison. So unhealthy comparison occurs when we base our self-worth on worldly standards, distracting us from embracing what God has called us to be. So we compare ourselves to another person's highlight reel. We compare the person we are with another person's relationship. So let's say, for example, you often looking around at this woman over here with this guy, and he taking her out, wining and dining her, taking her to expensive restaurants, buying her filet mignon, and you get tired of having chicken noodle soup every day, right? You get tired of eating McDonald's. Maybe I want some
Steak.
get some steak. So a lot of times we be constantly comparing ourselves to other people. That often leads to not being content with the person that we have, and we also really don't know the negative aspects of other people's relationships. So yeah, you can fantasize about being in a mansion, but that comes with a cost a lot of times. You can be with a famous celebrity. You can be dating Megan Thee Stallion, and you may. I mean, there may be some pros with that, but it's also cons with a person like that.
Sorry.
And so now we're going to look at how does Jesus deal with comparison. And let's actually turn over to Matthew chapter 18, verse 1 through 4. And I'll be reading from the New Living Translation. It says, about that time the disciples came to Jesus and asked, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Jesus called a little child to him and put the child among them. Then he said, I tell you the truth, unless you turn from your sins and become like little children, you will never get into the kingdom of heaven. So anyone who becomes as humble as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And so what Jesus is saying is we ought to be like children. So children, you can give them a quarter and they'll gladly give all that they have to the Lord. Children love to serve. They love to help out. They love to help clean up. And that's how we ought to be in relationships. We should be looking to be servants, not looking to be served. John 21, verse 15 through 25, it reads, after breakfast, and this is after Jesus rose from the dead and he comes across Peter, who had denied him 3 times. After breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, Peter replied. You know I love you. Then feed my lambs, Jesus told him. Jesus repeated the question, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, Peter said. You know I love you. Then take care of my sheep, Jesus said. A 3rd time he asked him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question a 3rd time. He said, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said, then feed my sheep. I tell you the truth, when we were young, you were able to do as you liked. You dressed yourself and went wherever you wanted to go. But when you were old, you would stretch out your hands and others would dress you and take you where you don't want to go. Jesus said this to let him know by what kind of death he would glorify God. Then Jesus told him, follow me. So for those of you that don't know, Peter actually died. He was crucified, similar to Jesus, but because he didn't feel worthy of being crucified in the same way that Jesus was, he was crucified upside down. But in his death, he actually glorified God. Verse 20, Peter turned around and saw behind them the disciple Jesus loved, the one who had leaned over to Jesus during supper and asked, Lord, will you betray me? Peter asked Jesus, what about him, Lord? And that's something that we have to be careful in doing when we're comparing ourselves to other people. Asking, what about him? What about her? Because see, Jesus just told Peter that he was going to glorify him in his own death. But the first thing he did is turn around looking at other people. Verse 22, Jesus replied, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? As for you, follow me. So the rumor spread among the community of believers that this disciple wouldn't die. But that isn't what Jesus said at all. He only said, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? And that's something we need to ask ourselves is, what is that to me? Verse 24, this disciple, actually you can stop there, but it's just, yeah, Lou, you can go to the next slide. So that's something that we'd rather think about is, how does Jesus deal with comparison? What is that to you, and am I like little children? The next one is self-sabotage is rooted in poor emotional regulation. So when we don't handle our emotions very well, it leads to being quickly frustrated by small inconveniences or annoyances. It causes us to be temperamental, so having a short temper. We often make impulsive and reckless decisions. Reckless behavior. Trouble with emotions interfere with how you pursue goals and achieve desired outcomes. We often are irritable and have outbursts of anger. And in many cases, we have undiagnosed and untreated mental illness. So now we're going to look at, as I wind it down, is what are some signs of self-sabotage. So I'm going to actually talk about 11 different signs, and for the sake of time, I don't have enough time to elaborate on each one, but I just want to share some with you all. Number one, looking for a way out of a relationship. Some people actually go into relationships looking for a way out. So from the time you say, I do, you're looking for the right chance to say, I don't. So it's avoidance of anything that takes the relationship to the next level. You may say, if things go south, how can I easily escape this relationship? So again, you're prone to catastrophizing very small incidences. Number two is perfectionism. Not just in yourself, but in the person that you're with. So this often leads to unrealistic demands, excessive fault finding. Your partner feels like you are impossible to please, and they eventually may break up with you. Proverbs 21 verse 19 says, it's better to live alone in the desert than with a quarrelsome, complaining wife. And this next one's a big one. Number three is gaslighting. And this is one actually I'm gonna spend a little more time on. So for those of you that don't know, gaslighting, the original of the word actually comes from a play. The term gaslighting originates from the 1938 play Gaslight by Patrick Hamilton. The play, which was later adapted into a film, tells the story of a husband who manipulates his wife into believing she is losing her sanity to control her and access her inheritance. This psychological manipulation technique has since been referred to as gaslighting, reflecting the themes of deceit and control depicted within this play. So gaslighting is a form of emotional manipulation that causes individuals to question their reality, feelings, and perceptions. Here are some common signs that you may be experiencing gaslighting. So one is you actually doubt your own reality. You frequently second guess your memories or perceptions of events. You may find yourself questioning whether your feelings are invalid or if you are overreacting. And also this will have 2 slides on it because there's many types of gaslighting. Number two, you feeling confused and disoriented. You often feel confused or disoriented after interactions with the person who is gaslighting you. This can lead to a sense of instability in your understanding of reality. Constant apologizing. You feel the need to apologize for your feelings or reactions, even when you believe you are justified. This can stem from being made to feel that you are too sensitive or dramatic. Another sign is you feel like your feelings are being minimized. So the gaslighter may minimize your feelings and tell you to calm down or stop overreacting. And this can lead to much doubt of the legitimacy of your feelings. So some signs of it, again, could be shifting blame, denying the truth, dismissal of someone's needs, frequent disapproval, isolation, and using love as a justification. Other ones could be forgetting. It's very interesting how a person that's trying to gaslight you, they suddenly have amnesia when you bring up things that they did or said. But yeah, they can remember the whole dollar menu on McDonald's. Every time they go to Chick-fil-A, they know exactly what they want. Number 5 with extra ketchup. forgetting,
Whoever orders extra.
invalidating emotions, withholding information,
We get the
paranoia accusations, constant criticism. And actually, before we go to that, I actually just want to give a few examples of some of the things that gaslighters may say. And for the sake of time, I can't go into too much detail, but one, you're being paranoid. This is a favorite phrase of cheating or abusive partners. It may be combined with projection, accusing you of cheating. So when combined with accusations, the likelihood of your partner manipulating you increases. So you can ask yourself, am I truly being paranoid? What's making me think this? What does my gut say? And the thing with a gaslighter is, you can't always, once you realize that you're being gaslighted, sometimes you have to take a step back and you can tell yourself that I know what I saw, I know what I experienced, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to always get overly obsessed with trying to prove to that person, because a lot of times they're going to deny it. So what are some examples of responses you could say to you being paranoid? Please don't question my ability to think rationally. Or you could say, please don't dismiss my concerns as unimportant. Another one, you're overreacting. An example of a response could be, you may think that I'm overreacting, but I am trying to communicate how I'm feeling to you right now. It's important to me that we can talk openly to each other to work through problems. You don't necessarily need to agree or feel the same way that I do for my feelings to be true and valid. Another one, that never happened. Something you can respond to that is by saying, it's hurtful that you can dismiss me so quickly. It's important for me in our relationship that you don't dismiss my experience. I had a different experience than you, and this is truly what happened to me. So you can respect what they say, but you don't have to accept what they say. Right. So if you find yourself trying to catch people, hiring private investigators, trying to record them, trying to look up text messages, a lot of times, if you're at that point in the relationship, it's probably time to move on. Because the thing with self-sabotage is, it's not just the person doing it. Sometimes we self-sabotage by staying in relationships of people that's abusing us. And I'm gonna just do one more for the sake of time. We just simply say, it's your fault. An example response could be, you are responsible for the choices that you do or do not decide to make, not me. I understand that you're angry right now, but blaming me is not fair. Lashing out at me is not a healthy way to deal with your anger. And there's many more examples we can do, but for the sake of time, I want to respect the time here. So, number 4 is avoidance. So that's basically you sweep problems under the rug. You just go along and get along. You may tell yourself everything's fine and it'll go away on its own. Pamela Coelho says, avoiding problems you need to face is avoiding the life you need to live. Number 5, and this is a big one also, and the first 6 of these is kind of, a lot of it is dealing with communication. But number 5, negative self-talk. So it's often driven by low self-esteem. So you simply habitually put yourself down. So in this case, you often will repel people from even wanting to be around you. Proverbs 18 verse 21 says, the tongue can bring death or life. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences. Number 6, unforgiveness. So you simply hold on to grudges that make it impossible for your anger from a past hurt to go away. And many people, they actually hold on to that anger because it justifies keeping that person at bay. So unforgiveness is actually a defense mechanism that allows you to pull back, and your anger can always be used as a trump card. Number 7 is serial dating. So it's a thing I call monkey branching. So when you serial date, you're acting like a monkey. Sharing your heart with multiple people at a time. So you actually trade time that used to be spent healing from a past breakup with finding a new flame. Proverbs 19 verse 14 says, houses and riches are inheritance from fathers, but a prudent wife from the Lord. Number 8, Proverbs 14 verse 30. So we're talking about jealousy is number 8. A peaceful heart leads to a healthy body. Jealousy is like cancer in the bones. So you're constantly worrying about that person is involved with somebody else, what they're doing behind their back. This can lead to constant check-ins and bombarding people with calls and texts. We often see this with a anxious attachment style. Number 9 is promiscuity. Proverbs 11 verse 22 says, a beautiful woman who lacks discretion is like a gold ring in a pig's snout. So of course we know that fornication is sinful, right? But when you fornicate, you're actually using your body for something that's not meant to do. Our body is not meant to be sleeping around with 100 people. I mean, that can lead to diseases, but it's also psychologically, it can change the way that you view sex and the opposite gender. Number 10 is slothfulness. So just simply, you're a poor steward of time. Proverbs 26 verse 13 through 15 says, the lazy person claims, there's a lion on the road. Yes, I'm sure there's a lion out there. As the door swings back and forth on its hinges, so the lazy person turns over in bed. So think of it like you're supposed to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You got your alarm set up. You got alarm go off, and what you do, you push the snooze button, you turn back over and sleep. And then 5 minutes later, so next thing you know, you're waking up, it's 8 o'clock, and now you're about to be late to work. As the door swings back and forth on its hinges, so the lazy person turns over in bed. Lazy people take food in their hand, but don't even lift it to their mouth. So many times we self-sabotage in relationships actually by not valuing the amount of time that we dedicate to this. Many of us right now may have been in relationships for the last 5 to 10 years with somebody that's never going to commit to marriage. Time is too precious to waste. So you should go into a relationship knowing that time is precious. And the last one, again for the second time, I'm kind of briefly going through these, but the last one is ghosting game. So a ghoster is basically a person that you actually use people like a light switch. And the unique thing is that people that are attracted to ghosters thrive on being the light switch because it protects them from commitment. It doesn't come with expectations when you accept somebody just calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning. You go ahead and do your thing with them, and then you go on. And if you ever get into an argument, you just say, you know what, you tripping today? I'll see you next week. The ghosting is not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of their inability to handle real emotions. And this was said by John Donne. And James Smith says, being ghosted is like being told you're not worth the explanation. And as we wind it down, breaking the cycle of self-sabotage. So how do we break the cycle of self-sabotage? 1, recognize your patterns of sabotage. Maybe you're a ghoster, maybe you're a gaslighter, maybe you have too much negative self-talk. Know what your triggers are. And also give yourself positive self-talk, give yourself positive affirmations, and celebrate your small successes. And don't be afraid to embrace failure. Yeah, most relationships are going to end in failure, but it's not fair to ponder on what have I learned from this relationship? What are the needs that I know that I have that moving forward in the next relationship, I'm going to make sure I communicate better. It also helps to seek therapy and also set SMART goals. So SMART basically stands for the essence for specific. So set specific goals with what your goals are in a relationship. M is measurable goals. So again, measure what are your expectations and actually keep track of that. A is achievable. Don't set. So R is realistic. Don't set unrealistic goals. And then T is time. So be time specific. And the last one that we'll talk about is healthy comparison. So as I close, let God's word be your standard of self-worth. So seek to imitate Christ in everything that you do. Strive to embody the biblical definition of a godly man and woman, not what the world says it is. Ephesians 5 verse 1 says, imitate God therefore in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Compare yourself to your past self and show gratitude for the progress that you've made along the way.
And Galatians 6 verse 4 through 5 says, pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. For we are each responsible for our own conduct. And that's all I have today, so thank you.